We see a dystopian Miami flooded with ocean water due to the increase of water level as a result of inevitable climate change. Land barons rule over any bit of dry land they can get their hands on. The town is impoverished, with some people living in boats and certain slum-like areas, homeless. It's the kind of world where people look for anything to escape and remember the good times. This is where private investigator Nick Bannister comes in. He uses a machine called reminiscence to visit the memories of his clients. The Army developed the reminiscence tank as an interrogation tool, but Nick found a new utility for it. He and his partner Watts help people visit nostalgia, a journey through memory. Some people, like Nick's wartime friends, Hank and Elsa Kareen, visit Nick's sanctuary often. Still, with regular customers, it's hard to keep the work afloat. The memory is projected as a hologram with sound effects. For the person, it feels like reality itself. Nick's internal monologue describes this as addictive, akin to reconnecting with a loved one and reliving the most significant moments of their life. If you're not cautious, the memories can overtake you. For security reasons, Nick and Watts keep records of all their customers' reminiscences in a glass chip safely kept in a vault. Everything is going fine until a woman named May stops by the office. May has lost her keys and wants to visit her memories to find them. It is a stupid reason for Watts to visit memories to find keys, but Nick is spellbound by May's beauty. He helps May find her keys and finds out that she is a stage singer who works in a nightclub. In her memories, she hums the same tune that his late grandfather used to sing. Nick falls in love with May's voice and certainly with her too. After May departs, they find that she left her earrings behind. When the sun rises, Miami becomes a deserted wasteland, and sleep is elusive. At night, the city comes alive again. Nick offers reminiscences services to the DA's office when a wealthy land baron, Walter Sylvan, escapes justice due to illness, prompting Nick to comment on the city's corruption. He visits the nightclub from May's memory, where she sings, and they share a moment of connection. He later returns her earrings. They have a conversation where May recounts a cherished memory of a remote house, and he accompanies her to her apartment. There, they express their desires and share an intimate moment. On the rooftop, he tells May that memories are like perfume, best enjoyed in small amounts. They kiss, and May suggests that he might not have the right memories yet. At that moment, the scene distorts for Nick, and he wakes up in the tank. Watts is furious that Nick is again immersed in reminiscence, having spent months reliving every memory he has of May. May has disappeared without a trace, and Nick hopes to find clues about her whereabouts within his memories. There are some things we should never forget, and some things we can't forget even if we want to. Watts urges him to let her go and focus on their business, but even their regular customer Elsa has stopped coming. Nick returns home and sketches memories in his journal, unable to erase May from his thoughts. He visits May's former nightclub and asks her acquaintances for leads, but finds none. Obsessed with her, he eventually takes a sedative and returns to his memories, where he only interacts with May. He is jolted awake by an alarm Watts set for him. Someone is knocking on the door, but he shouts that they are closed. When he opens the door, he discovers May's earring in the water. When Watts learns about the earring, she suspects it has been lost for quite some time. District Attorney Avery assigns Nick and Watts to retrieve the memories of a comatose suspect who worked for a drug lord named St. Joe in New Orleans. After 12 hours, they have no results. The issue is that dying subjects always seek closure, a happy thought. Nick alters his approach, and the projector activates. In the man's memories, they see the suspect. Nick also spots May, who was once at St. Joe's Club. The memory is from 5 years ago. Even though they are there for a different reason, Nick focuses on her. She had tried Baca, a highly addictive narcotic. The prosecutor takes the microphone and asks a question the comatose suspect cannot answer, leading him into shock. Nick takes the microphone back and calms him down, still concentrating on May and asking when he last saw her. Nick is devastated to learn that May has become an addict and St. Joe's lover. The memories also reveal that May stole St. Joe's stash of Baca before fleeing. Watts already knew May was a junkie. Nick departs to learn more about May, traveling to New Orleans. He finds St. Joe's Club and gains entry under an alias. Nick confronts Joe, but Joe quickly realizes Nick's true identity. Joe tortures him, and Nick admits he is searching for May. Joe hasn't seen her since she stole from him and orders his henchmen to drown Nick. Just as Nick thinks it's over, he sees a body flying in. It's Watts who has come to rescue him. A shootout erupts. Watts takes out several henchmen and shoots at the water tank, though she was actually aiming for Joe. Joe grabs his dual pistols and fires at Watts, missing at point-blank range. Nick manages to overpower his captor, and Watts handles St. Joe. Back in Miami, Nick has Watts relive her last encounter with May. He believes May took something from him and suspects she was manipulating him from the start. During their conversation, May revealed her addiction to baka and shared details about her and Watts' life. May wakes up, and Nick is enraged. She apologizes for keeping it from him, but his anger stems from the fact that she got drunk and let May walk into the vault. Watts argues that even with the stolen keys, May couldn't have known the combination. But it's not a combination. It's a memorable tune. May had been studying Nick for months. They discover that May stole recordings of Elsa Kareen, a client who has repeatedly relived her encounters with a wealthy lover. Nick visits a market, showing Elsa's picture to see if anyone has seen her. One of the vendors points out a girl who might have information. She runs away, and Nick chases her, eventually catching up and calming her down. From her, Nick learns that Elsa was recently murdered, and her young son was kidnapped by a woman who matches May's description. He starts to question May's true identity. While searching for May, Nick is attacked by a man who tells him to forget about May. Back at his office, they review the memory multiple times, searching for clues, and discover that the attacker was Cyrus, a corrupt cop who worked for St. Joe. Sylvan's recent death has led to speculation that his monopoly might be broken, but his widow and son are set to inherit everything. This is when Nick starts to piece things together. Cyrus had been working for the land baron. Nick replays his memory of Elsa's recollections and recognizes a familiar voice in the land of Baron Sylvan. He reviews Tamara's memory and finds out that the land baron was having an affair with Elsa and they had a son who could inherit his fortune. Nick theorizes that the land baron sent Cyrus with May to eliminate any evidence of his infidelity. If he finds Cyrus, he will find May. Watts tries to convince him that his feelings for May were fabricated and that he has fallen for an illusion. He dismisses Watts, telling her she'd be better off without him, but she pleads with him not to spiral further into obsession. Nick insists she leaves and grabs his gun, targeting the widow Tamara, who lives in the affluent drylands. The butler lets him in and tells him he's an hour late. The house is filled with people in similar attire, but it turns out the butler mistook Nick for a performer dressed as Tamara's deceased husband. Tamara's memory is damaged from excessive use of reminiscence. Nick confronts her, and she directs him to a place where Cyrus and May might be hiding. The guards expel him and feign shooting him, but upon seeing his service mark, they let him go. Nick buys a boat and heads to the old recycling plants, where he spots May and follows her. It turns out it's not May, but he finds Cyrus instead. He tells Cyrus that the tune May sang in her memory was no coincidence. May wanted him to see it, researched him, and deceived him. Cyrus jumps out the window and Nick follows him to a lower floor. They engage in a fight, neither gaining the upper hand. In a music room, Cyrus nearly drowns before Nick jumps in to help Cyrus free himself, only to be left to drown himself. Cyrus reflects on memories of May while holding her earring. Nick manages to sedate him and brings him back to his office, where he connects him to reminiscence to explore his memories. Before losing consciousness, Cyrus warns that the truth about May will shatter Nick. Nick views Cyrus's first encounter with May and discovers that May has found Nick's acquaintance, Hank, who had mentioned the tune. Cyrus's memories reveal that May's relationship with Nick was a ruse. She had been enlisted into a scheme to deceive Nick, researched him to better seduce him, and orchestrated the loss of her keys. However, the memories also show that May genuinely loved Nick. When Cyrus killed Elsa, May took Elsa's son and fled with him to an undisclosed location. Nick then tells Cyrus that May escaped him, and Cyrus goes into shock, indicating that this didn't actually happen. Nick observes a memory where May, while knocking on his door, is turned away because he said they were closed. Cyrus grabs her, and she drops her earring, and they drive off with May declaring her love for Nick. May had returned for Nick. Nick then questions Cyrus about what happened to her. He watches as May delivers a speech meant for him, indirectly revealing the location of Elsa's son and confessing her true love for Nick. Desperate, May takes a fatal dose of baka and jumps from a balcony. Nick is devastated. In a fit of rage, he forces Cyrus to relive his worst memory, when St. Joe's men burned his face for embezzling. Nick engraves that memory into Cyrus's mind, ensuring he will never recover, much like Tamara. Nick has a conscience, and thus he is ready to confess to the crimes he committed. But before that, he confronts the land baron's legitimate son, Sebastian, who hired Cyrus to eliminate Elsa and his half-brother to protect his inheritance. Tamara had hinted at this before, and Cyrus's memories confirmed it, along with his phone. Sebastian's half-brother is still alive, and the police are close to solving the case. Sebastian tries to grab Nick's gun but falters. He considers suicide but changes his mind and is later arrested. Nick visits Watts and tells her that Cyrus killed Elsa and May. He asks Watts to hand over the reminiscence to Avery and solve their cases. Nick also requests Watts to find her daughter and reconcile her relationship while she has time. Finally, Nick confesses his crimes to Watts, who will duly deliver them to Avery. After Sylvan's crimes are made public, a civil rage breaks out in the city to cleanse it for good. For his role in exposing the Sylvan conspiracy, Avery cuts a deal with Nick. He doesn't get to walk away but is announced lifetime imprisonment with his reminiscence, May, in it. In the end, Nick locks himself in the tank. He commences his eternal journey through memories with no future destination. He recorded his voice on a loop that would keep on guiding him through the same memories with May, again and again, until death rescued him from it. Years later, an old Watts visits the tank with her granddaughter, an aged Nick still playing his reminiscence with May in it. Watts took Nick's advice and bridged her relationship with her daughter, but nothing much was left in the real world for Nick.